Welcome to Books in the Freezer, a podcast dedicated to the deliciously disturbing world of horror fiction. I'm your host, Stephanie, and get your game face on because we are talking deadly games in horror fiction with return guest Jocelyn Codner. Oh, I did too. I have been looking forward to this one for so long, so I'm glad we are finally here recording it. All right, so what do we like about
Mm,
games in stories?
Well, I was thinking about this, and at first I wasn't really, I couldn't figure out why. I was just like, oh, I just like it. But I think what having a game in a story offers us, whether it's in a movie or a book, it offers a framework. It kind
Mhm.
of packages the narrative, the plot there for you. You're following the rules of the game, you're progressing through the game. So it gives us kind of a tidy I don't know, journey to go on. We kind of like know where we're headed. And sometimes we'll get some fun twists and turns. But for the most part, I feel like books and films that fall within like the deadly game concept are, in my mind, a little popcorny. I know that's not the case for all of them, but of what we're going to talk about today, I think feels kind of popcorny.
Oh, I mean, everything you said, I like that too. There definitely is a range. There's definitely like the room temperature to freezer of deadly game movies. We will definitely get into that in a little bit. I think also the nostalgia factor, and I think especially in a horror framework, I like players struggling, I guess, with this like illusion of control because I feel like for the first part of it, it's like, but if we just follow the game then it's going to be okay for, some of us, all of us, one of us, depending on what the game is. And I feel like there's always the time where it's like, no, we're going to try to like go after whoever's behind all this. We all, and like getting people on the same page and stuff. So that's like an aspect of those stories I'm always like very interested in. And like, what is their relationship to this game? And like, how do they feel about participating in it?
Yeah. Well, I really like what you said about nostalgia because yes, some of the things we're going to talk about today have nothing to do with any of our childhoods, hopefully. Hopefully. But a lot of them do. A lot of them are built on childhood games or childhood situations. And I always love that. I, like most people, really enjoy a heavy dose of nostalgia in my horror. It's just fun. But I really liked what you said about that idea of if we just follow the rules, if we just follow the rules, we'll get out of this. And I'm very much, that kind of person. I think that way to an extent. I'm not, a very rigid rule follower, but I feel I have a very strong sense of justice. So I feel that things should be equal for everyone. People should be judged on in the same way. And so if we follow the rules, maybe, we've earned our right to get out of this. But a lot of the times in these stories, you get to the point where you realize that doesn't matter. The rules are fake. They're all made up. And no matter what you do, you're just kind of screwed. That,
Oh yeah, like staying true to the game and then realizing that it meant nothing and you should
yeah,
have just
you should have just
overthrown
gone
it.
for it. Yeah. So I always wonder, like, if I were in that situation, and I don't know, whatever situation, any one of these situations that we're going to talk about, would I try to follow the rules or would I go against that gut instinct of mine and try to just break out? And you can see in all of these stories that we'll talk about, people try either approach to mixed results.
Yeah.
It obviously depends on the story. But yeah, I don't know what I would do. I don't know if if I was abducted, I woke up in some hell scenario. I'm not going to be so cocky to say that I would survive. And I also am not going to be so cocky to say that I would come up with like a genius plan to get out. Like it's very likely that I would probably just try to follow the rules like a good girl and then get destroyed. So,
Yeah. That's probably where I'm at. Like if I'm
mhm.
waking up in a cube and someone wants me to do math, probably not.
Oh, ooh. I would just sit down and be like, I'll die now. Thanks.
I was more of an English girly, guys.
Mm,
Sorry.
yeah, yeah. You know, that's interesting though. I feel like we're kind of like moving forward here, but when it comes to games that I'm good at, I am actually a little better at math games or
Really?
like puzzles and patterns than I am with word games. Like I can't play Scrabble. I'm a horrible speller. I can't do anything that has to do with like puns or just word association. Like I'm pretty bad at that like on the fly. But when it comes to
Really?
like card games or math games or puzzles or patterns or memory, that's better for me.
Oh, I am the total opposite. Like, I am good at anagrams. I am good at
Mm.
Scrabble. Okay, I'm good at Scrabble, like finding things, but strategically, I don't think
Oh
I'm that
yeah.
good at like I'm not a defensive Scrabble player. So like
Hmm.
people always beat me because they're like, no, I just thought 3 steps ahead of you. But I was like, I'm really proud of myself for putting this word
Right.
in. Do, 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 do. But yeah, like there was like I grew up watching Survivor with my parents,
Hmm.
and I
Yes.
mean, I would always compare myself to these people that are on this island, like that haven't eaten, that are in a
Yeah.
completely different situation than
Yeah.
like me on my couch being like, I could do that.
Right. Like shoving Doritos in your mouth. You're like, totally, I could do that.
What an idiot. How
I
have they
know.
not figured this out yet?
They don't
They're
even
like
know how to make
delirious.
fire. Yeah. My we definitely did that too, me and my siblings. We totally were like we would be great in a survival situation. And you know what? We still act like that. Like me and my sister in particular are like, please, we could totally survive out in the wilderness. We know probably just like a tiny little bit of survival skills, but we are very confident that we would be more than fine.
Oh no, absolutely not.
No, the reality is we'd be extremely dead. But I don't know, you fake it till you make it, I guess.
We have the confidence to get you through maybe
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah, just a little. We would live a couple days, I'd say.
I think at the beginning the confidence goes a long way.
It does. Yeah, yeah, it motivates you.
Yeah. One thing about Survivor though that I always thought was really interesting is my dad was a military guy. And so I think he would always root for like, the people that are coming in with a lot of like leadership experience, like
Mm.
ex-military guys, guys
Mhm.
that you would think do well. And I think he would always get frustrated when they would
Ah.
get outwit by squirrely, conniving people that come out of nowhere. And I'm like, that's how you play the
Yep,
game.
it
It's outwit,
is.
outplay, outlast, baby.
Ooh, ooh, yes. And that's the thing too, is like your dad would be he's very much in his own rule
Mhm.
book, right? And he
Yes.
recognizes people that learned from the same book. What is a sure thing to throw those folks off is someone who never had a rule book to begin with. So the real psychos, the people that are like a curse to their friend group, who are always causing all of this like chaos and drama, those are the people who are going to win Survivor because they're always looking for different angles and they're very creative at causing destruction. So they're the ones to worry about.
Yeah, that's who you got to worry about the squirrely people that are like making alliances, knowing who to backstab, that have a plan, that know people and know how to play people.
Yes. I knew a lot of those people in college. I hope they all do Survivor. I hope they go on Survivor and show
I
their
thought you were
true
like, I hope
strength.
they're doing awful, by the way. I wish nothing but the worst.
You know, I hate to tell you, but most of them are doing extremely well.
They usually do. They usually do.
Yeah. They're very, very successful.
The person I'm thinking of, same. But I was also, yeah, thinking about these stories and the way that they're laid out and the differences between them. And I wanted to talk about that. Like, we have, first of all, I think the difference in motivation and whether
Mhm.
characters are placed in the situation against their will or the very few
Mhm.
cases where people choose to participate,
Yes.
whether knowing full well or knowing maybe half of the information
Yeah. Mhm.
before they get into the game. So I think that's interesting. And then in those stories, looking at why would someone choose to get into this game? Is it like, this is my one chance to get out of this town? Is it like,
Mhm.
I have a loved one who's sick and dying, and this is my one chance to get this money?
Yeah, it is really interesting because it does seem in those situations, um, it's extreme, right? This is their last opportunity, and it usually, from what I have seen in our extensive review of the literature that we've done, is that, yeah, it's mostly like monetarily motivated or grief or desperation of some kind. People need to escape, people need redemption, people need to save somebody. And our system in this country is ruthless. Our healthcare capitalism can be quite ruthless, and people can be trapped in poverty, people can be trapped in cycles that continually tear them down. And we see a lot of this magical thinking in our society. You see it mostly like with the lotto, people buying lotto tickets and being like, I'm going to win all of this money and then my life is going to completely change and I'll be free. I'll be free of the everyday pain that it is to live in whatever maybe their situation is. And that very rarely happens for folks. But it is an interesting idea to think like, what if someone approached you and said, there's a game that there's something you can participate in. And if you do, you get X amount of money or you get X thing guaranteed to you. But here's the catch, it's if you lose, you die. And I could see a lot of people jumping to do that because not only is that opportunity for them to in a sense become free of the cage that they're living in, it also offers this interesting sense of control where it's
Mhm.
like it's a game you're playing. It's not just chance, it's not just buying a lotto ticket. You are participating in a more active way for the most. So you maybe in their head they're like, oh, I believe in myself, I believe that I can do this, and I can control it, and I'm going to jump in and I'm going to win the money, I'm going to win the thing that saves me, saves my family, etc. But like we just said, not, that's an illusion. Like the control is not always what you think it is when you enter these situations.
Absolutely not. So yeah, I was gonna say like in a lot of these cases, it's not like there really is a choice if this is your only choice to get you out of a
Mhm.
bad situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, and also with these people that have this carrot dangling in front of them, that's also going to keep them more loyal to the rules and less likely to want to buck the system when things start getting crazy. And maybe for some characters, be like, well, that's one less person. Like it's dark, but I mean, that's one less person that's going after this, whatever thousands of dollars or, whatever.
Mhm. Oh my god, what a perfect comparison to the system that we live in every day. When the crabs in a bucket situation, and people think if they just follow the rules of our society, then they'll be rewarded. But the truth is, well, the truth for I think the truth is that if we buck the system, we all gain freedom for all of us. We gain collective liberation. But yeah, wow, I'm really enjoying this idea of like these games are just like a little microcosm of societies.
Mhm. I think they're a very interesting lens for sure.
Absolutely. Well, I was just going to add, you can add so much more into it. You've got that initial foundation of the critique of society, whatever society we're looking at, and then you can add a bunch of extra details that make it richer.
Absolutely. I was gonna say the other side of that is the, "Uh-oh, I woke up in this scenario and I have no idea where I am. What is going
Yeah,
on?"
to me, the more terrifying, but
Yes.
maybe the easier, since thinking about what you just said about being more controlled by the illusion that you could win. In this scenario, that doesn't exist.
Yeah, no, oh my gosh. So, yeah, I was thinking of, like, the different ways those stories look. The number one I was looking at was the, like, government mandate, like, control, like, battle royale, Hunger Games,
Ooh, yeah. Or even
Cube.
yes. We didn't even really talk about this, but The Purge, a
Oh,
little
yeah.
bit. A little bit. It's not quite like a structured game, but it is like a government sanctioned playtime, if you will, which is just, hacking people up or doing crime. And also thinking about like that concept of the government mandate, that is a critique of a different kind of social structure too, right? Like that's more of a critique. Whereas something like participating in a game for life-changing amounts of money or life-changing amounts of resources, in my mind, is a critique of capitalism. This model of being just randomly plucked, or maybe not so randomly, but to you are just plucked from your life and plopped into a situation where you are given no choice as to how you participate or what you're participating in, and it is like a government mandate, that feels more of a critique of like communism in different communist countries, thinking mostly of the Soviet Union. And I find that really interesting too. So you can really like take this story structure and play with it to talk about all manner of things.
Absolutely. It is such a flexible topic. I have
Yes.
not even gotten to like the other
No.
ones I have here. Uh, the other one I have, well, another one I have listed on here, and I don't know if I want to give the pop culture things because then that's kind of a
Mm,
spoiler, but
mhm,
is the you're a sacrifice to prevent something bad from happening, and that is
mm.
this game.
Yeah, and, that one is interesting and fun because why do the powers that be, why does the thing that you're being sacrificed to prevent, why does that require a game?
I
Human
don't know.
sacrifice is not unheard of in human cultures. It has happened for centuries. It was happening not that long ago in certain cultures. It is a thing that folks do in their society, and they legitimately think that it, brings them fortune, good fortune, or it staves off disaster and retribution from the gods. But why the game?
Depends what the gods demand.
I guess they want to be entertained.
Yeah. Well, that brings me to
Mm,
my next one. You are entertainment for, in most cases, an elite, like uber wealthy class that is also like placing bets on winners, and you are there
hmm.
for their entertainment.
Yes.
And there
And
is a lot for this one.
yes, I was just going to say, this one is big. This one's so prevalent. We've got a lot in our list of things that fall
Hmm.
under this category. I like this one a lot. It's a very simple message, but it never gets old.
Yeah.
So, I mean, thinking about this too, I would say The Most Dangerous Game, the short story, falls into this category.
Hmm.
That is something where most of us are taught in school growing up, at least in the US. And first of all, what a great pun in the title that I didn't even appreciate until I was an adult. I didn't even like realize game and game were like, two different things.
You're just an adult one day. You're like, that's clever. Just drinking coffee.
I know, yeah. Honest to God. When I say I'm not good at word games, I truly mean it. I'm not a pun gal. But yeah, like it's a classic format. As long as we have this inequity, it's gonna always ring true to most of us anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, because Hunger Games also falls into that.
Yes.
Um, would you rather? I
Mm.
mean, there's so yeah, and I think that's interesting because yeah, we kind of get back to the unfairness of capitalism, like forcing these people to fight for just like absolute necessities.
Yeah.
Um, but also in a lot of cases, I see this a lot. It's like, oh, the commentary on the ethics of like reality television and like
Oh yeah.
watching people,
Yeah.
like you being a consumer for this type of content.
100%. Two things that have popped into my head are, of course, the gladiator games in ancient Rome. That's like a
Mhm.
classic example of this, where people would just go watch people murder each other in horrible ways or murder beautiful animals in horrible ways. But then also, with thinking about that commentary on reality television, have you read Beauty Queens by Libba?
I started it. I did not finish it.
Well, I'm going to give a recommendation, free rec
Okay.
for that.
Okay.
But specifically the audiobook. The audiobook is extremely fun. It's a big production. It's got a lot of interesting sounds and fun voices and stuff going on. It's a good time, especially if you're driving somewhere. It'll keep you entertained. But that is definitely, it kind of like falls into this a little bit, I would think. But anyway, I'm not going to get too far into that. But I recommend Beauty Queens by Libba Bray if you're interested.
And then one of the last ones I had on here was like punishment to bring some form of twisted justice slash earn your redemption. I had Saw for this one, but I feel like there's
Hmm.
definitely got to be others.
Saw Saw's the first one really, and the main one that kind of pops into my head. And this is kind of like getting more into our movie list a little bit, but I would maybe hazard to slot Jumanji into this just a little bit
Okay.
because he has to First of all, love Jumanji. I thought it was funny to add it to this list, but I think
Oh,
it
it's
works.
perfect. It's perfect.
But he has to like save the kids so that they don't fall into the same trap that he fell into when he was a kid. That's not exactly the same thing as like a personal redemption, but he does have to stop thinking about his own survival and start thinking more broadly about the survival of other people that are in that situation.
I love Jumanji.
Ugh, I know. It's such a good movie. And like, I was just thinking about it the other day before I was going to bed, and I was just getting all excited all over again, thinking about the opening of that movie in particular when it's supposed to take place. I think the opening takes place in like the 60s, and there's like a
Yeah.
different color to the film in that section, and everyone's got their fun 60s clothes on, but it's like darker, like physically looks darker, and it is scary when he gets sucked into the board and the babysitter like freaks out. It's terrifying.
I remember being so scared of that as a kid, like renting that from Blockbuster and just like, I don't remember how old I was, little like 8-year-old me being at like the edge of my seat, like, oh my God, oh my God.
Hmm. And then when the hunter comes out, oh my god, absolutely terrifying. That dude haunted my dreams. And he's not scary looking, it's just the idea of being pursued. He actually looks hilarious. That mustache is absolutely riotous. But being hunted, like we've got a lot of being hunted as a game in this list.
Mhm.
It's terrifying. It's the panic, the flight or fight that's like in you. It's a horrible feeling, and as modern day humans, we don't feel that too often anymore. It used to be very important to our survival like thousands of years ago, but when we feel it now, it's a nightmare. Like nobody wants to feel that. If you're feeling that, that means you're in a very bad situation.
Yeah.
Something that I was thinking of in terms of our list here of like kinds of deadly game stories, how people end up in this situation is that sometimes people can be tricked into a deadly game by like a demon or a trickster god. And like I'm thinking specifically about like the Truth or Dare movies or
Ooh, okay.
the Ouija movies.
I did not know that that's what the Truth or Dare movies were about.
Yeah. So
Oh, also the Countdown app movie.
I have not heard of that. What is the Countdown app movie?
Well, it's not called the Countdown app movie. It's about an app called Countdown that like
Okay.
has like you download it and it tells you when you're gonna die.
Oh, horrible.
It okay, I will say it was not a great movie. Like
Okay.
I'm not here like please go watch it on Netflix right now. I
I
did
don't know.
watch it
I
on
might.
Netflix.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, like it was interesting, it like starts out like this high school party and everyone's downloading the app and like one girl's downloads it. Everyone's like, "Oh, 50 years, 10 years, 30 years." And one girl's is like
Oh.
3 hours.
Oh my god.
And then like, her boyfriend's been drinking and he wants to drive her home and she's like,
Mm.
"Uh-uh. I'm
Mhm.
walking home."
Yep. Yep.
Because she didn't read the terms and conditions, and so her time gets like made even shorter
Oh jeez.
because she
Okay,
tried to
well,
like out trick it.
I'm definitely going to watch this movie. That
Don't
okay, you
expect it to be
say
good.
yeah, you say it's not good. That's fine. I watched some clunkers for this anyway, but I love that idea. I love that
Yeah,
idea, and that definitely like ties in a lot of other concepts like new things that we haven't talked about yet in terms of commentary on society. Like just because everybody else is doing it, are you going to do it too? Like is everyone just going to be doing this fad game? Is everyone going to be doing this fad internet thing? That is interesting to me
yeah,
because I'm not really someone who does the fad stuff. So I don't know, maybe I'm being a little self-righteous here, but I find it kind of an interesting discussion of
yeah.
like you don't always need to be downloading the countdown app and seeing when you're gonna die. Like you don't need to.
Well, with that, should we get into some movies that feature deadly
Yes.
games?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, one I feel like that I mention all the time on this podcast is Cube. I feel like it comes up like every other
Oh yeah.
episode.
It's very important. It's an important film.
And for people who don't know, this is like a Canadian like indie horror movie. And it's this group of people. Well, they don't even know they're a group of people because they all wake up like in their separate
Yes.
cubes within the
Mhm.
cube.
The cubes
And
within the cube,
the cubes
yes.
within the cube.
The
And
eternal cube.
some of the cubes have these like deadly traps. And so you can't just like freely move throughout them because you have to figure out which ones have deadly traps or not. And they utilize that like effect that we all loved in the 2000s, which is that like laser cutting people slash like boat wire
The
slash
boat
sliding
wire.
glass door. Like we loved like quickly cutting people into
Yeah,
pieces in
we
the
loved to
2000s.
see a clean cross section of a
Yes.
human body. We loved
We
it.
loved it. Like I watched 13 Ghosts. I'm like, a sliding glass door would not do that.
Oh, no. No. Although a wire, like the wire in Ghost Ship probably would. Oy,
Yeah.
yikes.
But we loved it. Resident Evil, like we just love it.
Oh,
We love
yes.
it.
We do. Millennials, we love it.
You want to make a millennial happy. Just show them a clean.
Just slice that body in half. I want to see the lungs. I want to see the intestines,
I
but
just want to
clean.
see like little meat cubes and then I want the sound of it falling down like
Yes, the plopping as it like slides, and the head just kind
yes.
of like slides
Yeah,
off
it has to be intact for a moment
for a
and
hot
then
second.
like blood and
Yes,
then it has to fall down.
like Kill Bill.
Yes.
Yes. Oh god.
Sorry. I know we spend so much time being like horror is actually a very academic and wonderful.
All right. Sorry.
And now we're like, I want my meaty plops.
I want my I need my meaty plow. Luckily, we are given that. We are satisfied.
Do you have anything else to say about Cube other than
No,
like a girl has to figure yeah, and then they find
it's a
out that
very good movie.
it is good and it's like a very good like closed space, like single group, people start turning on each other. No one knows
Yeah.
why they're there. Certain people figure out like the code and like what makes
Mhm.
rooms safe and not safe. And it's a whole
Yeah.
thing. But
Cube does a lot of things extremely well. It does that closed room mystery well. It does the puzzle solving well. The group dynamic shifting really, really well. All of the kind of like pillars of like the archetypes of characters. It's got them all and it's really well executed. I think there is a thing that pops up in Cube that is a recurring theme throughout some of these movies and books, which is when certain people are put into these situations, they discover things about themselves and they come more fully into themselves and, in a way, reach a full potential, which that's kind of what I think Saw is the concept of that is in Saw. Jigsaw is trying to like push the people that he puts in those
sorry.
situations
Eyes
to.
roll. I'm so I hate Saw.
Well, yeah.
We'll
He's
get to
trying
it.
yeah, we will. He's trying to get people to reach their full potential. And I think that like we'll talk about whether that works in Saw or not, but in Cube we see it happen for certain characters and it doesn't always work out that character then is saved or saves themselves, but they do unlock things within themselves as they're trying to survive this horrific experience.
Okay, so the next one I have on this list is Ready or Not, which is hide and seek, right?
Yeah, classic. Absolutely. Except you will die.
Yeah, so with this one we have Grace who is marrying into this very wealthy like board game dynasty family and they have like a tradition where like at midnight after the wedding you have to like spin a thing and choose a game and we all have to play the game. It's like everyone that marries into the family has to do this. And
Hmm.
she lands on hide and seek, which I guess is the one that you don't want to land on that one.
The only one.
So yeah, it becomes a game where she is hiding and the entire family is hunting her down and trying to kill her.
And this movie has several of those concepts that we talked about earlier wrapped into one. So it has the inequity, it's got the rich family and someone who is not rich. And then it also has the idea of doing something to stave off something else. I don't want to do
Yeah.
spoilers.
Yeah.
So that it's interesting that we've got multiple levels. It ties in the idea of selling, kind of like selling your soul to something. That's a classic American
Yeah.
trope of like sell your soul to the devil for X, Y, and Z. And then in a way, they've kind of, the family has kind of trapped themselves in this eternal game. But if you want to just see an awesome final girl
Oh, yeah.
ripping through some shit, like Ready or Not is such a good movie. It's really funny too.
It is really funny. Samara Weaving is one of our greatest, like,
Mm,
scream queens of this decade. Like, I
preach.
think she's ruling the 2020s.
Amen. I
Maybe that
agree.
was 2019. I said that, like, very confidently,
Well,
and
it
then
all
it all
kind
blends
of
in.
blends in.
But definitely of this era.
Yes.
And yeah, she is so funny and so resourceful. I always laugh in the movie where it's like the one brother-in-law who's like watching a YouTube tutorial on how to use a crossbow because like that's the weapon he got. And I'm like, that
Yes.
would be me being like, how am I supposed to use
Right?
this?
It's like, "Oh, this one's cool. I'll pick this one this time." And then you're like, "Wait,
I
this
don't
is
know what I'm doing.
complicated." Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know what I'm doing. It's not like in Battle Royale where like the kids just like pick that up and like the one kid like figures it out. I'm like, okay, I guess. I was gonna say I watched Battle Royale again this week for the episode, and there were so many parts about that that I forgot that they all have to pick their packs like at
Mm.
random, and some people just get crappy weapons. Some people have like
Oh,
a
yeah.
taser, and someone has like a machine gun. Like it is so
Oh,
uneven.
not fair.
But that's another one where there's a big dispute over like who wants to place their bets on being the final one over versus who wants to like try to overthrow this system. Like there's many times where people are like, "Hey, like we're on the walkie-talkies. We're at this side. Like we're going to try to have a meeting." And they get ambushed by people who are like, "No, I'm just going to take you down."
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good thing to point out. It's been a while since I watched and read Battle Royale.
Yeah.
I think it was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I really need to rewatch. I'd like to reread too, but it's a thick one, so I'll have to plan that out a little bit more carefully. But I had so much fun with those, with the book and the movie.
I
And
did too.
yeah, yeah, I want to rewatch it really badly.
And I will say for listeners who haven't read it and are intimidated by the size, I also am someone who is very intimidated by giant books. It is a
Yeah.
fast read. And I went into it wondering, like, how am I possibly going to keep track of 40 characters? And you just do. Like, you
Yeah.
just know who these people are, and there's a running counter. Like, at the
Yes.
end of every chapter, it's like, well, two girls down this chapter. Well, five
Mhm.
boys down this chapter. Bam, bam,
That's
bam.
helpful. Very
Yeah.
helpful.
So, yeah, it's pretty bloody. I was like joking about it to you the other day, but I'm like, I love that people get into the situation and suddenly they're like cornering people and making like villainous monologues. I'm like, I
Yes.
guess that's just how you become in this
Yeah,
situation.
absolutely. It just comes over you. You're like, I know what I have to do, and it's I have to get my villainous monologue ready. You're like
This is
practicing.
my moment, actually. This is my
Yeah,
time to shine.
my one moment.
But another thing that was interesting is like, yeah, in there, it's a 10th grade class that was picked for this like government program, and there can essentially only be one survivor after like a certain time period. They're on this deserted island. And they're being monitored. And I've always enjoyed the video that they play them to prep with like the perky girl who's like walking them through, like,
Mm.
okay, so now you're gonna want to like get your packs. Da 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 da.
Oh
We're excited,
no.
guys, aren't we? And just the
Oh
absolute horror that's on these kids' faces. And like there's been kids that have already been murdered in front of them to
yeah,
show where they're like, okay, like the collars you have on will kill you if you don't listen to us. Watch
yeah.
this. Bam. We're not
Hmm.
lying.
Yeah, I think that is a really good point. A good thing to point out. I think Hunger Games does it a little bit too. And I know these
Hmm.
two properties have been compared quite a lot. When the
Yeah.
Hunger Games came out, there was a bit of an uproar concerning the plot being too close to Battle Royale. And I'm not going to get into that. But
No, there's no time.
no, no, no. But one of the things that both Hunger Games and Battle Royale do are the juxtaposition between the abject horror of what's going on. These children, and well, in Hunger Games case, it's people of all ages at some point, but people being murdered in really horrific ways by each other, versus the glitz and glam, the cheer, the like everyday life, like and even a mundane existence. Like those juxtapositions are what create it even more horror in my opinion, because
Yeah.
it makes the murdering and the gore so much worse. And it's terrifying. It's depraved. It's on the depraved scale,
Yeah.
basically.
I really liked The Hunger Games. I was really surprised when I read it in college in how much there was to go into it. I mean, we could go into a lot of it and how,
Mm,
like, to survive, they have to play into the reality television aspect of it.
yes.
They have to, like,
Yes.
appeal to making a storyline. They can't even just focus on their
No.
survival. Like, they have to
No.
be likable on top of
Yes.
everything else.
Yeah. I love The Hunger
I
Games.
do. I have not rewatched it or reread it, um,
Yeah. Mhm.
but I just remember really enjoying it. Another one that's a rough watch for me is Would You Rather.
Oh, yeah, no.
I watched it with a Patreon group one night, and it's like a good movie, but I was just uncomfortable the whole time. It's not a movie where you're, like, ever relaxed. There's not a moment of ease.
No.
And you're following Brittany Snow, which also I think Brittany Snow does not get enough credit for,
I
like, all the
agree.
horror work she's done, all the work
Yes,
she's
and
put into
she's
the horror genre.
good. She is good in these roles too.
But she, like, takes this opportunity, like, she chooses to be involved. She gets an invitation to potentially make a lot of money, to help someone close to her, and she takes this invitation, goes to this dinner party where they play, guess what? Would you rather? And it's always, like, these horrific things, like, would you rather, like, stick a razor blade in your eye, or,
Ugh.
like, I don't even remember any of the things because I have completely blocked this movie out.
The razor blade in the eye,
I'm
that
just
was
thinking
it.
of the
That's
poster. I'm
all
just like,
I
I see the
know.
poster and I am, like, traumatized. I'm like, "Oh my god."
Oh, I have seen this one in clips, like bits and pieces. It's a favorite of my sister's.
Really?
Yes, my sister loves this particular
So
styling
so
of
does my
film.
brother-in-law.
Yeah. I know. I'm like, "All right, guys."
I'm like, I like talking about it. I like having seen
Sure.
it and, like, having a discussion, but while I'm watching it, I am just like, "Ugh, I can't."
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's rough. And
It's a
so
rough one.
I have not seen it all the way through, but I have seen chunks of it and I know how it ends. And it's an appealing story. Like it feels like a very tight story. The motivation is perfect and, you know, airtight, but I don't think I can watch it all the way through. I feel like I just can't enjoy. I would be like you. I'd be like very on edge all the time. Whew, yeah.
I'm just like, "Brittany Snow, you're doing great." I'm just
Yeah, I know.
go.
Keep going, girl. Keep going. Well, one that I watched that I was very surprised by how much I actually liked it was The Hunt, which came
Yeah,
out a few
okay.
years ago. And it, when it came out, people kind of like exploded because the way it was presented was that East Coast elite liberals were abducting salt of the earth conservative Americans and basically doing like a most dangerous game kind of situation with them. They would let them go on this expansive property and then hunt them. And so that's pretty much all that people knew about this movie. And
Yeah.
it got blowback from like every corner of everywhere. Like people were pissed off about this movie for every reason. And so I didn't watch it when it came out because even though the cast is amazing, like the cast is extremely good, I was like, I don't know. People are all up in arms. I'd probably just skip this one. But then one of my best friends watched it and she was like, "Oh, it is extremely entertaining. You should definitely check it out." So I made a point to watch it for this episode, and it is extremely entertaining, and everyone should check it out. It is really fun. It's not nearly as cut and dry as the way it was presented.
Okay. I
Yeah,
figured there had to be something like that where it
yeah. hmm And it's also pretty campy. So even if it were just straight up, you know, elite liberals are abducting salt of the earth conservatives and murdering them, it was extremely campy. So it was still kind of like, in my opinion, fun, even though that might be a little touchy. But it was way more complicated in those terms. It was not as clear cut, and the people who are like the bad people are really like the bad people. Like you do not like them, and the
yeah.
people that are, you know, our final girl who Oh, I'm completely
Is
forgetting
it
her
Betty
name.
Gilpin
Yes, Betty
from
Gilpin.
Glow? I loved her in
Yes.
Glow.
Oh, and she's amazing in this, and she is an incredible final girl, and I feel bad that she is not getting her time to shine as a final girl because folks were kinda turned off by the concept of this movie. So I will just say, folks,
Watch it.
check it out. Yeah, you should watch it. It is definitely like hunting humans, like playing, toying with humans because they think that they hold a moral superior ground to certain people. And there's a lot of good commentary in it as well. It's just it's
Mhm.
not too heavy-handed, and I thought it was fun.
I'll have to check that out. I
Um
watched Escape Room and its sequel, Escape Room Tournament of Champions, for this
mm.
episode, and I had so much fun.
I can't wait to watch the
They're very PG-13. Like that if you're looking for people having to solve puzzles under duress and suffer gory deaths, there's another franchise I can offer you later. Um, but if you just want to watch people solve puzzles under duress, then boy, do I have the franchise for you. um,
Perfect.
yeah, have you ever done an escape room?
Yes, and they're stressful to
They
me
are so
because
stressful, so stressful.
yeah, I can't I'm like the timer, the like having to collaborate sometimes with people you don't know. And then also because I am me, I always feel like I am not pulling my weight in the escape room and I'm not solving enough puzzles. And I'm like, they should just leave me to die because I'm not worthy of escaping. So I don't know how I feel about them.
Um, so it's these random people that get this, or seemingly random, get this invitation to participate in this very exclusive escape room, and the winner of the escape room gets like, if they can beat the escape room, they get like $10,000,
Hmm.
and it's really entertaining. There's like the main girl is like she's studying like math at university, so she's like very smart. You have like more of like a blue collar guy, you have like a truck driver, you have like a veteran, you have like a corporate guy, and then one guy who's just like really into escape rooms and like
Ooh.
reviews them and is all like, it's okay guys, like it's a part of the thing, this is actually very interactive, wow, how are they doing? it's
I
really
kinda love that character.
it's really funny.
Yeah.
And even as they like get out of the first room, he's like, wow, how did they do that? I'm like, guy, like you still don't get it.
Yeah, he's still really just thinking about it one way. He's not really opening his eyes very
He's like,
wide
they
here.
couldn't be killing us.
No, no, surely not. This is for fun.
But as the movie goes on, you realize like, oh, they all kind of like have something in common, and they were lumped together in this group and put into these
Mm.
very elaborate escape rooms. But the design of them is so fun. Just like the set design and everything, and the things
Ooh,
they have to figure out, and the puzzles are very interesting. And that's like what I was looking forward to. So if like
nice.
that's what you want the focus to be on, but yeah, if you want like people like drown and like fall, like you're not
Oh,
seeing
yeah.
like
Yeah. We're not getting our clean mid
you're
sections.
not getting
We're
your
not
meaty
no.
plops.
No, we're not getting meaty plops in this one. So, this is not for this is this is for Gen Z.
Yeah, this is like if you want to take your teen daughter and like,
Perfect.
you know,
Perfect.
rent a
Yeah.
movie together. But the sequel, and okay, a recurring theme in this one is like, oh, like we're just chilling here. Surprise, it's an escape room.
Oh my god.
um, so the second one, it's like the main girl, and she's like, I'm gonna go like confront the people who did this to me. And then like
Ooh.
suddenly she's in a subway car and it's like toon toon, the subway stops.
Uh-oh.
And then someone in the car says, like, oh no, not this again.
Oh,
So
Tournament of
all
Champions,
okay.
yes.
Then there's a character who's like, what is this? Some kind of a kicks the subway car wall. Tournament of Champions.
No! Yes!
And I was like, title card drop.
Oh, this is gonna be so much fun. I have both of these, like, ready. I was gonna watch them for the episode for this recording, but I did not get to it in time. Maybe that's what I'll do when we're done recording. I was for folks listening at home, I was telling Stephanie I'm gonna do my nails after this. So maybe that's I'll watch Escape Room while I do my nails because this sounds so much fun.
Yeah. Parts of it are like a little dumb, but you just gotta like
Yeah,
go with it.
that's
You gotta
fine.
just like
Yeah,
take that. as a thing.
Yeah, sometimes that is part of the joy.
It is part of the joy.
Mhm.
So, I guess just, like, know what you're getting into with this. Don't expect, like, hard R horror with this. You're not gonna get it. If
Yeah.
you want, like, a fun thriller, I had fun.
Yeah. Mhm. Well, I've got 2 interesting pairs of movies
Okay.
that I explored for this. So, the first pair are the Truth or Dare films. So, these are not related to each other at all, but there was a film called Truth or Dare that came out in 2017 that was, I believe it was like a sci-fi made for TV movie. And it had the guy who plays Guillermo in What We Do in the Shadows in
Oh,
it, Harvey
yay.
Gillen, I think. I'm not sure if
Yeah.
I'm saying his last name right. And then Heather Langenkamp is in it as well. And then there was a movie that came out in 2018 with Lucy Hale in it called Truth or Dare. So people talk about these movies like as a pair. I watched the 2017 Truth or Dare when it hit streaming. So it was several years ago when I watched it. And I remember really liking it. I had a really fun
Is
time.
that the Lucy Hale one?
No,
Okay,
it's
that's
the
the Harvey
Heather. Yeah, the
Heather
Harvey and
Langenkamp one.
Heather.
Okay.
Harvey and Heather. So that one is a bunch of teens like break into an abandoned house and decide to play truth or dare, and it like unleashes some, actually both these movies are extremely similar. It unleashes like a thing that haunts them and they have to figure out how to, contain it and defeat it and get their lives back. Then the Lucy Hale version, they are on spring break. Of course, spring break bitches. You always know that that's a bad sign when someone's getting really excited for spring break. So they are in spring break in Mexico, and Lucy Hale in particular, meets a charming, attractive young man at the bar, and he has a suggestion for the group. Hey, do you guys want to go to this cool place I know about to keep drinking? And they're like, sure, we're not idiots, we'll go. So they go. It's an abandoned church. It's like wrecked, and they have some beers there and they're chilling, and this charming stranger suggests that they play truth or dare. And so they start playing Truth or Dare, and it gets a little mean spirited. They start, and these are like good friends, right? But then they start like picking at each other and they start
Mhm.
revealing things that they shouldn't. And then it turns out that basically, kind of like It Follows, there is an entity that
Ooh.
this charming stranger was possessed by, and he passed it on to the new group by engaging in a game of Truth or
Mm.
Dare. And so they have to, it gets increasingly dangerous, but they have to play with the entity. It's a demon. They have to play truth or dare with the entity. The entity is telling it to do all of these horrible things. Sometimes they survive, sometimes they don't. And they have to figure out how to defeat the demon. So, the thing about the truth or dare movies, I've heard people say that the 2017, the Harvey and Heather Truth or Dare is not good, and that the Lucy Hale Truth or Dare is good. I have the opposite opinion because I thought that the Harvey and Heather Truth or Dare was fun and the Lucy Hale Truth or Dare was mean spirited and nasty. So
Ooh.
it was like very reminiscent of teen horror movies that we grew up with, like us mid tier millennials, where people are very nasty to each other. There's a lot of misogyny. There's a lot of just like mean stuff that happens, and it doesn't really redeem itself,
So
which,
we were just like, "Let's bring that back." Everyone loved
right.
that.
Yeah, we loved that. Yeah, let's bring it back. We were all so well adjusted and like at peace with ourselves. So I will say I did actually have fun watching it, but
But
just know
maybe the
that.
producers made a deal with the demon and they had to pass that on.
Well, I don't want to spoil the ending, but
Oh, okay.
probably. Probably. You might have hit something there. But then the other like group of movies that I watched for this are the Ouija movies, which similar dynamic, although these movies are connected to each other. So there's Ouija that came out in 2014, and then Ouija colon Origin of Evil, which is a prequel, but I can't remember when that came out, after the first movie. And Ouija, the original, the 2014 movie, is not great. It's another like classic teen horror movie, but it's pretty sterile. The
Mhm.
scares aren't really good. It's kind of like tropey. I got a little bored watching it. Ouija Origin of Evil is extremely good. It like takes place in the 70s and it is
I
super
like that.
fun. Yeah, it is a very good horror movie. So both, they're playing with a Ouija board, they unleash the demon, and then they've got to do, they got to do what they got to do.
That's in
Which
the
I think is
Conjuring
always
universe,
fun.
right?
I actually, that's a really great question.
I don't know.
I don't
I
know
threw that out there
because
very like, yeah.
I mean, it has the feeling,
Yeah.
especially Origin of Evil
Yeah.
has the feeling.
That's why
So,
I'm thinking it.
yeah, I actually didn't rewatch Origin of Evil. So I should rewatch it just because it's good, and maybe that will answer that question for me. But I really enjoyed, when we're thinking about these two groups, I really enjoyed the Harvey and Heather Truth or Dare. I didn't super not enjoy the Lucy Hale Truth or Dare, so people could watch that if they like, those styles of horror teen movies. And I really liked the Ouija Origin.
Sounds good. Well, should we end this talking about Saw?
Dun dun dun. Yeah, let's talk about Saw.
The Saw of it all.
The Saw of it all.
I have only seen the first two, and I was like, you know
Mm.
what? I don't think I really need to put myself through this ringer, through this reverse bear trap of a franchise. I don't need
You
to
don't
do this.
want your you don't want your jaw ripped off of your skull.
Ugh.
You don't want to dive into a pit of hypodermic
I think
needles.
the issue is that I did not see these when they came out.
Mhm.
So they were
Mhm.
not like, I think had I seen these in the theater, I would have been like mind blown. Like,
Yes.
I cannot believe it. Mic drop. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm watching these in the 2020s and seeing like the green filter that's on everything,
Yes.
the
Yes.
glitchy like effect that we all loved. We didn't
Oh my god. It was everywhere.
put that up there with the meaty plops, like the
Yes. These are the main tenets of millennial horror. 100.
I think the like not even earnestness, but like I guess that's what it is of
Mhm.
this like, no, this is why I'm doing it. I'm actually teaching you a lesson. You're not grateful enough to survive.
Ooh, your jigsaw is so good.
You're welcome. But it's like it just made me so mad. I was just like, I
Ugh.
cannot stand this. Really.
I am appreciating your perspective on this because I definitely watched it when it was in theaters. I watched up into, I think I watched the fourth one, but I was like dropping off and I don't really remember it very well. I definitely remember the first and second the most. I legitimately like the first Saw. I think
Mhm.
it's inventive, it's really smart, it's interesting.
Yeah.
The twist is classic.
Mhm.
But it does just get to a ridiculous point, and then it becomes like difficult to like take it seriously. But I will say I feel like I had a unique experience with the Saw movies because I went to the alma mater for college of one of the big producers of all of the Saw movies, like this, and I forget his name, but he's just a producer, so it's fine. um but he was like the guy who saw he like saw he's because Saw was made as like
Mo's and I seesaw all the time.
because Saw was like that low budget. Oh, the Sunday afternoon
I'm
giggles.
sorry.
But he basically discovered it. It was a low budget film. He took it and gave it wider distribution. So he went to the college that I graduated from as well. So he would come back and give like presentations and talk about the process and talk about Saw, and we'd have screenings and stuff. And he was very invested in us. I went to film school, if that wasn't clear. He was very invested in us as students and our ability. He was a cool guy, and
Yeah.
he asked many of us if we had scripts. Like, in all seriousness, he was like taking us very seriously. So he was a person who really believed in like the little guy because he had
Interesting.
seen proven success in that regard. So that was really nice. And so I have that kind of like happy thought associated with with
Yeah. No,
Saw.
that makes sense that you have like a
Yeah.
personal connection to it. I was
Hmm.
watching the second one not that long ago, and I guess spoilers for Saw 2. But Amanda from the first one is one of the like people that's in this game. and I had forgotten who she was, but I clocked her immediately when she's like, "It's okay, guys. We just have to follow the rules and play his game.
Mm,
He's not trying to punish us." I'm like, "Her.
mhm.
Why do you not her it's her."
Yeah, you gotta question that woman. You need to question. I would probably end up having an aneurysm in that situation. I don't
Yeah.
think I would be able to think clearly enough
No.
to get anything accomplished.
No.
So, no redemption for me.
No. That's fine.
But I do think that's interesting, taking Saw into consideration with what we've discussed. It is a situation where this essentially madman is kidnapping these people, forcing them to do this horrific thing as a form of redemption. And you can kind of track that to a lot of religious behavior as well, like flagellation and, you know, harming the flesh to cleanse it, that
Mhm.
sort of thing. I find that really interesting. And Saw also, once you get further along in the franchise, starts to have all this kind of hilarious commentary on the United States healthcare system and the inequities that that creates. I don't know how, because I did not get all the way through to the end. And I've not seen Spiral, but I don't know how you go from his solo crusade of trying to give these people an opportunity for his twisted idea of redemption into like, oh, we have a systemic issue that we have to fight through my twisted games. Like, I'm not really sure how. So if people are like big Saw devotees and want to like give me some information about that, if you want to give me your takes, your opinions, I'd love to hear how
Yeah.
this all
Send
coalesces.
us the Saw think pieces, I
Yes.
guess.
Oh, I would read every
Yeah.
Saw think piece, even if it's just someone writing an extremely long comment on a social media post. I'll read it.
Yeah.
I'd love.
That sounds good. I mean, I would be interested as well, but I'm always interested on takes on, like, movies or books that, like, I was
Absolutely.
not that interested in. Like, I love
Hmm.
hearing people talk about books that I was kind of like, "Eh,"
Me
about and
too.
hearing why they liked them.
Me too. Yeah.
Well, speaking of, should we get into the books?
Yes. Let's do the books.
This episode is brought to you by Fangoria, the world's best horror and cult film magazine since 1979. Listeners can use code BOOKSINTHEFreezer to get 20% off their order. That includes, of course, merchandise and first-time subscriptions and single issues of the magazine. Not only are there tons of articles and interviews about upcoming horror movies, there's a regular segment by Stephen Graham Jones all about slashers called Slasher Nation, so you're going to want a copy. So again, that is code Books in the Freezer, and thank you, Fangoria, for supporting the show. All right, I am starting off with The Housemates by Ian Robright. This is available on Kindle Unlimited. It is extreme horror, so setting those expectations there. This is about a group of people who have signed up for what they think is like a Big Brother style reality show. But when they are called to the patio for their first kind of challenge, they become aware that there are high stakes involved. And this is not just like a let's chill and let like certain personalities shine through and like having a good old time. I actually don't know. I've never seen Big Brother. I really don't know what the
Oh, my family
format of it is.
loved Big Brother. We watched
um,
it all the time, but that being said, I don't really remember the format either. So forgettable. Forgettable.
so basically at the end of each like challenge, certain people get like an advantage over like, whatever team wins gets like a certain advantage over the other group. And then at the end, like two people are voted to compete head to head in like a separate chamber, and only one person comes out of that challenge. And that is like every day, like bottom two people
Ooh.
go battle it out. One person comes back, and then the person that has died, we basically see why they were chosen for this show play out on the
Ooh.
screen. And like, no one here is innocent. We're all going to find out what you did when your time comes.
Oh my God. That's okay. So I downloaded The Housemates. I started reading it. I'm not very far in, but pretty much immediately you are uncomfortable when you're reading this book. I'm very excited to keep reading it because that sounds super fun.
And it's also like very gory.
Yeah.
It is it's an extreme horror novel, so place your expectations there. When I was looking at the parentheses, it says this is like the 4th in the Damien verse. You do not have to have read
Oh,
the other 3. Um,
interesting.
I don't know, like, we're following Damien, I think, so I don't know if he's just the main character who just, like, has the worst luck, I
I
guess,
know, I
because
was
he's
gonna
in, like, the
say.
escape room book, he's in this book.
Oh,
I'm like,
no.
"This poor guy."
Yikes. Well, he must be good at I mean, if we're on book 4,
Yeah.
you know, he's probably, like, got some skills at this
Yeah.
point.
But anyway, yeah, like I feel bad for him. But yeah, it's really interesting. And there is a little bit of the like, yeah, like who do I put alliances with? Like, who can I
Mm.
trust? Should we try to buck the system? Should we try to follow the rules? Like, why were we here? How did you get here? What are we all doing?
Yeah.
Like a little bit of that all into this. And also like who is behind this? Who is watching
Mhm.
us?
Yep. Yep. It's always interesting when you start to see the strategy
Mhm.
form, and you get to a point in any game, you know, whether it's a game for your life or a game of cards, you get to a point where like I have to start developing strategy. And I always find that interesting when we get to that point in things like Saw or like Housemates.
Definitely. It's also where I'm weakest in games where I'm like strategy. I'm like,
Yes.
I just want to pick the cool words. I just want to put like my impressive word down and have people go, ooh.
Well,
uh,
luckily you can have that.
Quartz, baby. No. um, what was I gonna say? This is definitely a freezer book. Like, I would not give this to anybody. I would not suggest this for like a random library book club. Like it is not for everyone. That being said, it was a very quick read. Like, I was very into this. And I kind of want to read the escape room one now because I'm kind of
Yeah.
like in this headspace.
Yeah. It seems like a fun series to actually get involved in.
So that was The Housemates by Ian Robright.
Well, my first pick would be appropriate, I think, for a book club
Okay.
or to hand off to anybody. It is Hide and Seeker by Daka Herman, which came out in 2020 from Scholastic, and it is a middle grade title. And I loved this book. I really, really enjoyed this book so much. It's really at its core about community care and community support, and it's just like it's scary. Okay, well, I'll get into it. So, it follows a group of best friends. They're all kind of like in middle school age, I think, which would make sense for the middle grade designation. But they're all marginalized kids. Most of them are Black, most of them are poor. Sometimes they don't have enough to eat. Some of them have incarcerated family members. We specifically follow our main character, Justin, whose mom recently passed away, leaving just him and his big sister who's in college, and they have to figure out how to survive together. And that's just like a horrible yet mundane everyday experience for a lot of people, and it sucks and it's painful. So we have that kind of group of kids, and despite all of their challenges and the trauma that they face, they are so there for each other. They love each other, their families take care of each other, and you can tell that this is a strong community, right? So the story is from Justin's perspective. And I think like an interesting thing that's woven throughout the entire book is that Justin struggles with anxiety and panic attacks a lot. And most of this is it's related to his mother's death. So I think that like this book in particular, if you know like an 11-year-old who's going through some stuff, this is a wonderful book to give them if they like things that are a little spookier, because it has that relatability. It has those lessons of how you can face these challenges in your life and find your strength and find strength in community. So that's like the overarching feelings that I get from this book. But what it's about is this crew. So we've got Justin, Naya, and Lyric, and their other best friend, Z, has just been returned home after having been abducted. And he
Oh,
was, yeah, yeah, it's pretty heavy.
yeah.
He's been missing for like a year. And he's returned home now, but he's not okay. Like he's not well. And you know that immediately. But all of his buds come over for like a welcome home party that his mom is like determined to throw. And it's so this core group of kids and then a few other kids from the neighborhood. And it's immediately weird Like, the dynamic is weird. Z is not well. Some of the kids who are at this party, it's kind of confusing as to why they're there because they're not really that close friends with Z. And then this one kid named Shay shows up, and it's really weird that she's there. She's not even in their friend group. She's acting extremely strangely, and she suggests that they play Truth or Dare. Oh, sorry, not Truth or Dare. Hide and Seek. I'm still stuck on the Lucy Hale Truth or Dare. Okay. Shay is not acting right, and she suggests that they play hide and seek, and they don't really know what else to do because it's kind of awkward, so they decide to play hide and seek. And the way this book is written, there's so much like heft to things. There is a ritualistic kind of feeling going on throughout most of the book, which is nice, I think, for younger readers who kind of feel like there's a process that you go through to get through plot. But when they're about to play hide and seek, they kind of like huddle up to confirm the rules of hide and seek. And this is very important. You can't break the rules. If you break the rules, well, you'll find out what happens when they break the rules. But they get together, and I'm just going to read like a really quick excerpt from when they start playing. So
Okay.
this is all from Justin's perspective. We form a circle. I extend my arm. Lyric places his hand over mine, then Naya adds hers. Quincy and Carla are next. Finally, Shay's hand slowly falls on top of the pile. A static shock zips up my arm. My eyes dart around the group. They all have strange looks on their faces, like they felt something too. Well, everyone except Shay, who stares at Z's house with an odd smile. So they play hide and seek, and as they start playing, they soon learn that they have basically entered into a bad faith pact with an evil entity
Oh,
that feeds off the fears of children. And if you break the rules of this hide and seek, once you've entered into this pact, you get sucked into this entity's dimension, which is
worst
a
birthday
hell dimension.
ever.
Yes, right? It's a horrible party. So they get sucked into this dimension, and they're constantly confronted with their fears because this is how the demon is like feeding off of them, and they have to solve the way they have to figure out how to get out of this dimension. But then they soon realize that the demon has captured hundreds of children, and all of these children are in this dimension, and if he reaches a certain amount of children, the demon is going to be able to take over more dimensions. So not only do they have to escape, but they have to kill the demon. So the whole thing, it's like really, really about confronting fears. It's really about coming together as a group, giving each other strength and courage, and making sacrifices for the group, and knowing, what you can do to solve a problem. It's really beautiful. It has a lot of the elements that we talked about with this overarching theme of deadly games, and I really, really liked it. And I really think that it's appropriate for all age levels. And honestly, it was pretty scary in some parts. Like, some of the things that these kids are afraid of, their deepest fears, like, it's serious stuff. It's
Wow.
not just like spiders. I mean, these are kids who are confronted with big adult things way earlier than they should be.
Hmm.
So their fears are legit. And so I would put this in the fridge for a middle grade title, and big recommend for this one. And that is Hide and Seeker by Daka Herman.
Wow. I'd not even heard of that one.
It has a really fun cover. You might recognize the cover if you see it, because I think when it came out, the cover was kind of everywhere because it's a pretty fun one.
All right, my next pick is The Odds by Jeff Strand. I think I got this also through Kindle Unlimited. But this is about we follow a gambling addict, and we are following him at the beginning of the novel. He's away on a business trip, and he's been at the casino and just suffered a big loss, and he's about to call his he's like kind of walking around and psyching himself up to call his wife and tell her that he just lost a lot of money after like he has done this before.
Oh no.
And he has like a specific note that he was supposed to read to himself that's like, hey, this is you. You just lost a lot of money. You feel awful right now. Please, you never want to feel this way again. Do not
Mm-hmm.
gamble. And he
Mm-hmm.
still chose to do it. So he's like, in this situation, I think he's lost like $10,000, something along those lines. And so he's walking outside about to make the call, and a man approaches him and is like, "Hey, you seem like you're going through something. Like, what if I offer you the opportunity to win like $10,000 in a simple game, and you have a
Oh
90% chance of
no.
winning?"
No.
He's like kind of skeptical about it, but the guy's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Do you think I'm just like some scary guy?" Like,
Yes, I do.
well, he like takes him to like an office building, and it seems pretty like there's like a receptionist. Like, it seems like a normal office building, and he's like, "All right, like here's the game." So he picks a number between 1 and 10, and if the guy guesses his number, he'll break his arm.
Ooh.
But if he doesn't guess his number, he gets $10,000. So get a 90% chance of winning.
Mm, I don't know.
So yeah, it's like, would you take that chance? Would you?
Oh, no.
And so he has to like actually strap his arm into a thing
Oh my
like before.
god. So he can't, like, back
So
out.
he can't back out. And it does it like
Mm.
immediately, like after if you lose. Like it's just like it snaps your arm.
Oh my lord.
Uh and so he does it, and like the first time he gets it, they show him, they transfer the money to him, it shows up in his bank, he knows it's real. And he's like, okay, would you do it for an 80% chance? Would you
Oh,
do it for a
no.
70% chance? Um,
No.
um,
Uh-uh.
and so he finally gets to a point where he's like, you know what, like I made enough money. I'm just gonna go home to my wife. And he's like, all right, like, well, don't worry about it. But he should worry about it.
Oh,
That
no.
guy shows up and he's like, oh, we're not done. You
Oh,
thought you were done. You're not done, actually.
classic.
And yeah, just like the things he has him doing. And he's like, you actually have 2 minutes to like go here and do this, this, and this, or this happens. Okay,
Mm.
like it's me again. You have to go do this, or this happens. And he's just in this hell cycle. Like he can't
Oh my
get out.
god.
And yeah, so it's just like him, and he realizes like he gets somewhere and there's like other people who are in the same situation who he's like going up against. And it's just these like crazier and crazier scenarios until there's like one kind of big final like tournament of champions kind of kind of situation.
Oh, oh my god.
um but it was really fun and really fast paced, and Jeff Strand is kind of like a funny, like he's a funny
Yes.
guy. So
Yes.
there's like a bit of that in here, like the narrator's a bit sarcastic, but the situations themselves are not
No.
funny. It's a horror novel.
Yeah, come on.
So I would say, yeah, this is kind of like freezer, uh, fridge freezer adjacent. So this is The Odds by Jeff Strand.
That sounds great. I like Jeff Strand a lot. I should read that one. All right. My next pick is Black Chalk by Christopher J. Yates, which came out in 2013 from Picador. And I've seen people kind of compare this to The Secret History by Donna Tartt. So it
Mhm.
has kind of that dark academy sort of vibe. It mostly takes place in England, Penn University, I believe, or Pitt. I'm sorry. Keep getting it confused because we have a pit here.
Yeah. I was like, is it here?
I know it kept like throwing me off. So I think honestly it's a school within Oxford.
Okay.
So whatever, just think that it's Oxford. But I do have a quick aside before I really dig into the meat of Black Chalk. There is upstate New York representation in this book,
You had to bring
and
it, so
mhm,
it's the
long
bingo card.
yeah, exactly. Longtime listeners have probably heard me on this podcast before and know that I usually mention upstate New York. And if you follow me on social media, you know that I talk about it a lot. I'm from there. I'm a stan. I love it. Um, and I will say, I was so delighted, and I was texting you, Stephanie, about this. I was so delighted that Alex mentioned Speedies on the Gerald's Game episode. The food, Speedies, it's an upstate New York regional classic, and it is very good. So if you have an opportunity to have Speedies in your life, absolutely take it. They're delicious. It's a delicious sandwich. But anyway, the representation in this book is bad. So I don't know if Christopher has ever been to upstate New York, but I would disagree with some of
You're
the
offended.
characteristics.
Is it like the Jim Carrey character, like that needs to go to the Finger Lakes?
God, I wish. I would pay good
That's a
money for
deep like
that.
office reference for people.
Yes. Yes. No, it is like there's a farm situation, which like I grew up with a lot of friends who grew up on farms, and I have spent time on farms. And so I was just like, I don't believe this as like a farm situation, but I always like to see the upstate New York
Yeah.
mentioned whenever it's mentioned. That's fine. So getting into the actual book, the real reason we're here, not me talking about upstate New York. It's about a group of 6 friends. I use the term friends loosely. It's a group of people, some of them are very close friends, some of them are just kinda brought in for this game, that find themselves participating in a game of their own creation while they're at school. So, it's kind of weird because they create the game does have cards and dice involved, but the readers are never told about the mechanics of that part of the game. They're not told about the rules. We don't actually know how this game is played. It's just kind of mentioned that there are these elements. The real thing that is important about this game are the consequences if you lose rounds of the game. So each player gets tailor-made punishments created for them that are very specific to who they are as a person, and
Okay.
if you lose your round, you have to do one of these consequences. And they start very, kind of playful, like they're mostly meant to humiliate you. So in the beginning, it's like wear a silly hat all day or wear the a shirt of the football team you hate the most, just like light stuff that pretty much any of us would do, no problem. But then as they get further on in the game, the consequences become way more intense. They start to involve humiliating other people or causing physical harm
Ooh,
or like
okay.
serious damage to your future, and psychological harm as well. And then in one case, it turns fatal. So that's kind of the game at the center of this book. But the reason why these characters are kind of trapped in this game, and again, this is all their own doing. I have to tell you, the characters are not likable. These people are actually horrible people. And this whole thing is just like an exercise in hubris for them. But it's fine. We like unlikable characters, and it works for this game or for this book because the game does destroy them. So you're like, yeah, you deserved it. But they get themselves into this situation where they align themselves with a shady group, like truly shady. Like we don't know anything about these people. We just know that they're called Game Soch, like Game
Hmm.
Society. And they encounter them on like one of those days at school where you go and all the tables are lined up and you go see all the different like student groups and you figure out what you want to do for fun at school or whatever. They run into this Game Soch convinces them to do a game, and they sponsor them, but they're also monitoring them. They're closely watching what they're doing. They watch them play the game, they watch them do the consequences, and if anybody who's playing the game leaves the game in a way that is not allowed, there are bigger
Ooh.
consequences. There's also money involved. They all had to pitch in like $1,000. So whoever wins gets all this money. So, that motivation is very strong. So this game goes on for way longer than anyone expected. And the way this book is told is through kind of a diary format for one of the main characters who is extremely unreliable. So you have like no idea
Mhm.
really what's true. You don't really know what's going on. So it's kind of like there's a lot of twists. It's very thriller-esque. Um and I will say it is not that scary. It is much more of a thriller than a horror book. But there are some really interesting elements at play. So I would put it at room temperature. And that is Black Chalk by Christopher Yates.
Ooh. That sounds really interesting. I had seen this one for a long time on Hoopla. Like it's been on my favorites, like, oh, I'm gonna read this someday list for years.
Mhm.
But I'm interested now that I know more about the story, and it sounds very like psychological.
It is. It gets really interesting seeing, some of the characters really have to they're presented with situations where they have to compromise deeply held values and
Mhm.
their own moral system. And what would you do?
Mhm.
What is the price to do that? And everybody's different when it comes to that. Some folks, they'll do it for, you know, $1,000. They'll do something against a moral that maybe they had. Then you have to kind of question, like, was that really a value or a moral that you felt? Like, I don't know. And some people quit. Some people are like, over my dead body, like maybe literally, I would rather die.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. And I really liked um, that presence of Game Soch. It
Mhm.
felt very Men in Black. It felt
Ooh,
very
yeah.
like puppet mastery. So that was fun.
That's very interesting. Okay. My last pick is The Crimson Labyrinth by Yusuke Kishi. This was translated by Masami Isatani and Camellia Nee.
I love the cover of that book.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. So this one starts off with a man who wakes up in a remote location. There's reddish canyons everywhere. He has no idea how he got there, and he just has the way it's described. It seems like a Game Boy from like when we were younger. Like it just seems like there's kind of just like text and like
Ooh.
very simple graphics, and it
Okay.
essentially lets him know that he's in a game. He does find a woman not too far from him who like also has a Game Boy, and he's like what is going on? So they end up working together. She ends up like she runs away from him at first because hello, she woke up in like a strange location and there's like a
Yeah.
man suddenly
Mm.
running after her.
Oh, no,
And
thank
she's
you.
like, I don't have context for this right now. And she drops her Game Boy and breaks it and later realizes like,
Oh.
oh no, she really needed that because that tells you like so she therefore like now has to stick with him because he has a Game Boy that's like you need to
Mhm.
go to this checkpoint, we need to go here. um, so it lets them know they need to go to a certain checkpoint. There they meet other players who have all just kind of been dropped into this like game in the middle of like they have no one has any idea where they are. The first thing immediately is they have to decide whether they want to go find food, water, weapons, or information.
Oh. What would
And
you pick?
well, now I read this. I think like done me would
Oh.
be like, oh, food or like water because you're gonna need water. They pick information, and the like little graphic is like, this is the correct answer.
Mhm.
This is what you
Yeah.
should have chosen.
I think I would choose water, but in deep in my brain, I know that information is the more correct.
Yeah, so they're the only ones. That duo is the only ones that go out looking for information. They find like another cartridge there that has like information. They have like extra batteries. And oh, what's really interesting is like he uh, is recently unhoused, pretty recently unemployed, but he was like a math major focusing on game theory.
Oh.
So they have interesting conversations about that because she's like talking to him about it. And he's like, well, game theory is kind of impossible because it's just kind of like this mathematical statistic, and games always
Mhm.
have a human element, which can be
Yes.
chaotic. Like you
Yes.
can't account for how people are going to react. So it's kind of like you can only do
Mm.
so much.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, essentially, so like on their way there, it's telling them like, okay, the people you need to watch out for are the people that went for the weapons. That is like the most dangerous group. That is your number one
Mhm.
enemy right now
Yes.
is whoever went out to go get weapons. And also, when they go for information, they have a list of everything that was provided. So when they go back
Oh.
and everyone's like, tell us what you found, they know who's lying and who's been like
Oh,
withholding stuff.
nice.
So, and he finds like a vintage choose your own adventure book, I think called like Mission to Mars or something. And it's the narrative of this story.
This book sounds so fun.
um, it was a little slow. Like I kind of like it's like like, in theory, like, it is, and I like talking about it, but the process of reading it, I was like, "Okay, this is
Hmm.
very, very slow."
Okay, good to
And
know.
the back is like, "Oh, this, like, biting satire," and I'm like, "Maybe the translation was tilted," 'cause, like, that part
Oh,
is
good point.
not super not
Not
coming through.
biting too
I'm like,
hard.
"Maybe it's a cultural difference, but, like, that part did not
Yeah.
translate to me."
Yeah, I could see that.
Um but there were parts of it that were very interesting and like a lot of stuff to think about, but the majority of it was just kind of like wilderness survival, like who can you
Mhm.
trust in this situation, and like the little Game Boys, and like you only have so many batteries, but like everything you need to know about the game is in these Game Boys.
Ooh,
So
nice. That
uh
does sound fun.
it was interesting. I'm glad I read it. And it seems like
Mhm.
that's the only title he's had translated into English. I think he's pretty prolific in Japan as a
Oh,
horror writer, but it seems like that's the only one.
well, I hope we get more
Maybe, yeah.
eventually. Yeah, I really like Japanese horror, so the
I
more
do
the
too.
better. Mhm.
I would put it like fridge, maybe high room temperature. It was not.
Mm.
But yeah, that's The Crimson Labyrinth by Yusuke Kishi.
Awesome. Yeah, that's on my TBR, and I'm definitely going to pick it up. So my last pick is Ghost Games by Brooke Mackenzie, which came out last year, 2022, and I believe this is self-published. I
Okay.
didn't dig too hard, but it did look like it was self-published to me. But you can get it on Amazon, both Kindle or like a hard, paperback if you want. So this is a short story collection, and each story is based on a specific game. And some of the games sound, they're classic games. Like there's a Ouija board story, there's a hide and seek story, Bloody Mary, and then some of them I didn't recognize. So maybe they are established games that I was just never introduced to, and other people might know them. So I'm just going to read the table of contents. These are the games that there are stories on. So there's the elevator game, the Three Kings game, the closet game, which the closet game is one of my favorite stories in this collection, Bloody Mary, the telephone game, the bathtub game, the hide and seek game, and the Ouija board game. So
Ooh.
those are all the stories and the games. And it was a really fun collection that felt really nostalgic to me reading it. So not all of the characters are teenagers, but they all feel more youthful, and that gave this entire collection kind of a Fear Street vibe for
Okay.
me. That was kind of what I was getting. So if you want something that feels like that and you want it in like a short digestible sort of package with short story collections, it's always nice. You can just pick it up and read a story here or there. Something that I thought was really fun that popped up in a lot of these stories was that there's this modern urban legend sensibility to a
Mhm.
lot of the stories. So it felt very creepypasta, very message boardy. Like a lot of
Mm.
these stories start with the main character reading about the game online or watching videos of people playing the game on YouTube, or maybe they hear about the game from a friend who found it online. So the internet plays a big role in this collection. And it just kind of reminded me of back in the day when email was more fresh, and I'm like a 10-year-old with an Earthlink account. And
What were we
and
doing?
I know, and I would get those chain emails that were like, if you don't send this to 12 people, this demon woman is going to show up in your room with red eyes and rip you to shreds. And like, I kind of miss that. I wish we still had those demonic chain
We have
emails being
countdown
sent
apps
to us.
now.
Right. I guess that's the new version. Yeah, we get the countdown app. Well, that's exciting. Um, I can't wait to see when I'm going to die. And at least with the chainmail, I know I'm the reason, like, I did it to myself because I didn't
Yeah.
forward it
It's the
to all
illusion
of
of
my
control.
friends. Exactly. Yes. But it had that vibe, right? And
Mhm.
that was really fun. Um, that being said, not all of these were super scary, but some of them had moments that really did freak me out. So I
Mhm.
would put this kind of fridge or, cooler room temp, if you will.
Ooh,
But that is Ghost Games by Brooke Mackenzie.
that sounds really interesting. I did not want to go through this episode and not mention Hyde by Kirsten White. That was like
Hmm.
almost a pick for me. I read that
Same.
last year,
Same.
2 years ago. I don't remember. But that also has like it's hide and seek in an abandoned amusement park. And there's some sinister stuff going on. And it definitely falls into one of the categories we talked about
Yes.
earlier. Actually,
Hmm.
multiple, because we have like
Yeah.
a class thing going on. We've got a larger narrative folklore going on. So we have that. There was also Reprieve by James Hahn Matson, which is about an
Hmm.
escape room. Have you read that one?
No, I know that there's the escape room element, but
That
because
is
I haven't
very
read
small.
it,
That is a
yeah,
very
I was
small
gonna
element
say,
of it.
based on the summary, like it doesn't seem like they even
No.
get to the escape room. Yeah.
Oh, they do get to the escape room, and someone dies in the escape room, and you're kind of
Okay.
like going back in time and kind of following the people that end up in the escape room. It's a lot more
Mm,
character focused, and the
okay.
escape room itself is like a very, very, very small part of it. So
Okay.
that's why I didn't pick it as one of my picks because I'm
Yeah.
like, if you're looking for that, you won't be disappointed. If you are looking for like a deep character study, that's a great one.
Yeah. That sounds good.
Ooh, when you said the elevator game, it reminded me
Hmm.
of I'm obsessed with that like six stories series, that British like thriller series
That sounds familiar.
where it's the guy that has the podcast and each episode is like kind of like a podcast series.
Oh, cool.
Hydra. Okay. So it's the second one in the Six Stories series. And they're written as like a podcast transcript. Essentially, it's like a true
Mm.
crime podcaster who like picks a like true crime
Oh.
thing, and then he does episodes interviewing different people who were connected to this crime, and then kind of getting like a final reveal
Oh, that
um
sounds fun.
at the end. And this one's about a girl from a small mining town in England who murdered her parents and sister with a hammer. She was sentenced to life at a mental health facility. But it had an element of like satanic panic. And like right before she did that, she went on vacation with her parents and played this like elevator game. And like, what was that?
Ooh.
What did she invite? Like, who was there? What is the elevator game? And like,
Ooh,
she
I
also listened to
wonder.
like metal and like dark emo music. Like,
Uh-oh.
yeah, it's
Guess
good.
we're in trouble.
So, you know.
Oh my. I wonder if the elevator game, I wonder if there is a standardized elevator game. I'll have to watch, I'll have to check that out and and compare it.
Wasn't that in the Midnight Club? No.
I don't think
No,
so.
not the elevator game. I'm thinking of something where they do play the elevator game. I know I just saw something recently. It must have been an episode of a show.
Yeah.
Evil? I think it was Evil, the
Ooh,
Paramount
Evil's
Plus show
fun. Hmm.
where they did the elevator game. So there is like a certain way
I'll
you're
have to
supposed to
see
do
if
it.
it's, yeah. I'm sure that it is similar to the one in the short story collection I read, because why would you call it the elevator game if it wasn't connected? But I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I
I'll
also
check it out.
started The Long Walk by Stephen King, but I did not finish it in time for this
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah. I like The Long Walk, but I listened to that one on audio, and I think that that helped me
Hmm.
get through it. It is a little slower.
Yeah, I think that also has a lot of like, okay, I need to beat these like 99 boys. I'm literally betting on myself
Yeah.
against these like 99 other boys. And also, Stephen King is so good at like physical descriptions, just like my legs
Yes.
hurt and my feet hurt
Yes.
listening to this book.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I'm like, I
No,
am tired.
it is a very good one. Like, definitely recommend it. A book that I was considering reading for this is Stags by M.A. Bennett. And it's the first book in a YA series that is, it also takes place in like a private school. And these teens go to someone's, like, I believe it's like somebody's estate in the country, and it's like a blood sport game, like people are hunting each other. And again, it's a commentary on class, which makes a lot of sense, especially in Britain. But what I thought was interesting, and why I didn't actually pick this one, was that it is the first of 5 books.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so I think that would be really fun for, if you want a series to dig into. This might be a fun one. But I did not want to start a 5 book series and then just let it linger. So I did not start it, but it did seem like, I mean, it fit into our Deadly Games theme perfectly, and it did seem like it was a lot of fun.
Oh, I haven't even heard of that. So
I know, I
I
hadn't
might
heard of
look into
it
that.
either.
Sometimes I'm in the mood for some shenanigans in private
Oh yeah,
schools.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Libro FM. Libro FM is the first and only company which lets you purchase audiobooks directly from your favorite local bookstore. You can pick from more than 150,000 audiobooks, including bestsellers and recommendations from booksellers. You'll get the same audiobooks at the same price as the largest audiobook company out there. You know the name. But you'll be part of a different story, one that supports community. If you're new to audiobooks, they're the perfect way to get more books into your busy life. Listen during your commute, while doing chores, walking the dog, or just relaxing at home. All you need is a smartphone and the free Libro FM app. If you already love audiobooks and don't know what to listen to next, check out recommendations and curated lists from people who know audiobooks best. Booksellers. And us. We also have a playlist on there full of books that have been recommended on this podcast. Books in the Freezer special offer. You get 2 audiobooks for the price of one, just $14.99, with your first month of membership using code FreezerBook. This offer is valid for new members in Canada and the United States. Thank you, Libro FM, for supporting the show. Well, Jocelyn, do you have a final girl song for us this week?
Okay, I always struggle with the final girl song, and I feel like now I feel in my head about it because Alex and Sarah had such good ones. Their Final Girl songs were so fun. I have done multiple Final Girl songs. Most of them are similar in that the vibe is murdering people. And I was like, do something different this time. Do something different. Have a different take on it. No, I don't. I have another murder song. Um
It's a brand.
yeah, yeah, it is. So my final girl song for this episode is Influx by After the Burial, which After the Burial is one of my favorite bands. They're metalcore, so got that vibe going. And if people are curious about the tone of this song, I reached a very big weightlifting milestone for me in deadlift. I deadlifted a very big number that I'm very proud of that I've been working towards. And the reason I was able to do that is because this song floods me with adrenaline and gives me super strength.
Nice.
So that's the vibe. It's a berserker song. It will just it'll give you the power to take down your enemies when they're coming for you, especially in a deadly blood sport game.
It'll give you that last bit of adrenaline to fight them off.
Absolutely. Yeah. You will be slicing them and giving clean cuts
Meaty plops.
of
We
meaty
will be serving
blocks.
some meaty plops.
Yeah. It's so gross. I love it.
Merch idea.
Yes.
No one will know what that means. It's
I
just like
know.
disgusting. It
It's
just
so
sounds disgusting.
gross. Oh.
All right, I love that. I will definitely have to add that to the list. We could always use more metalcore.
Good, good. I'm
It's
here to
such an
provide.
eclectic like
I
vibe.
know. It really is. The list is bonkers.
All right. Well, do we have some chilling obsessions?
Absolutely. Do you want to go first or would you like me to go
Sure, I
first?
can go. I have two. The first one, because I don't think it'll have broad appeal, it is a movie I saw on Shudder. And it had like middling to low reviews, and I was like,
Ooh.
5 stars. This one was made for me, and I guess only me.
Mm,
But it's called Midnight Swim. It's a found footage movie that's about these sisters who are, again, adult siblings coming together after
mm,
like the death of a parent to like grieve.
mm.
I'm like, yes,
There
I'm
we
there.
are. Mm-hmm.
Um, and one of the sisters is like documenting everything through, she's like recording everything. And their mother had drowned herself. She was like a very complicated person. She had a very complicated relationship with all of them. They all have like different baggage from dealing with their mom and like
Ooh.
kind of coming together and talking about it. And she lived on the lake and she like loved this lake and advocated for it politically. Like it was a very big part of her life. And they're like, well, that makes sense that that's how she would go, that she would just like
Yeah.
give herself to the lake.
Yeah.
Um, but then as they're there, they keep talking about this like urban legend where there was like these sisters that like were never allowed to go anywhere and they all just like drowned themselves one by one in this lake. And then like the one sister that's holding the camera, like weird stuff starts happening to her camera. And then like when she's underwater, she thinks she hears like singing. And so she's kind of like, what do we know about this legend? Like, where did it come from?
Ooh.
I'll say it's a very light on the horror and very heavy on like dialogue, sister relationships, grief. So I think
Well,
maybe because it was on Shutter, people had like certain expectations. But if you're
oh
looking for
yeah.
like a virgin suicide-y, like
Everything you're saying is making me want to watch this. This sounds also like it was made for me because I love virgin suicides. I'm also obsessed with lakes. Like my grandma lived on a lake, so I spent a lot of time on lakes. And I get that. I get the connection to lakes.
yeah.
And if I had to choose a way to go that wasn't just dying in my sleep, it might be giving myself to the lake.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, it was very interesting. And the daughter that has the sister with the camera does feel like a special connection to the lake, and she's like, how about you guys go and I just stay here? I'm like, I actually feel
Hmm.
a calling to like,
Ooh.
yeah, so it's a little
Ooh.
more like ghostly and like
Oh, I like
just kind of
this.
like light spookiness throughout, much more
I'm
drama.
gonna watch it. Yeah, I'm gonna watch that for sure.
My other one that I think will have broader appeal is Poker Face on Peacock. I watched it. I had such a good time. Natasha
Obsessed.
Lyonne is so fun. And if you don't
Yes.
know, the premise for this is that essentially she's a human lie detector. In the first episode, it sets up that she like solves a murder at the Las Vegas hotel that she works at. But in doing so, because she does so, she is on the run. And so for the rest of the episodes, she is just kind of like, the episodes open up basically with the murder. So you, the viewer, know who did it and why. But you were just watching like, wait, how does Natasha Lyonne like come into this? And she's just like driving into town and somehow like meets these people and is there when there's a murder and
I
like
know, she, like, attracts it. It's amazing.
and the guest stars that pop up on
Oh,
each
stunning.
episode are like, wait, what?
Yep. It is incredible who is on this show.
Yes. So
Mhm.
they are kind of like self-contained mysteries. There is like the thread of like, oh, she's on the run, and there is like that thread where she's like, oh no, I gotta go now, bye.
Yeah.
But I have had so much fun with it.
Me
It was
too.
I don't know if it was written and directed or just directed by Ryan Johnson, but
He's heavily involved
heavily involved.
one
Like,
way
yeah,
one way or the other. Yeah.
yeah.
No, I fully co-sign Poker Face. I also have been having a blast going through it. It's just it's so fun. It's such a smart show. It's very entertaining, and I do have to say, I know people have been saying this online, but I want to like fully support this take. My husband and I have been going through and watching Columbo, all of
Oh
the
yeah, it
Columbo
does have those
episodes.
vibes.
It is so Columbo, and I have been thirsting for a more modern update of Columbo. I love Columbo as is. I'm a big fan, but I wanted more of that, you know. And then I started watching Poker Face, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is Columbo. This is incredible. She's like doing it." And I love it. It is so satisfying to me.
One thing I will
So,
say that stresses me out in like the first couple episodes, she's like cornering the person that did it. And
oh, I
she's like,
know.
so I definitely know that you did it. And here's how you did it. And
Oh,
blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, girl, like,
you're
where's
gonna
backup? Like,
die.
you're going to die.
Yeah.
No one is
Which
there.
is that's also like a Columbo element. Like people do that in Columbo all the time and they do it before they get killed by the person that they're doing it to. You know, like that's how people die in Columbo and then Columbo has to come in and solve that murder. So, yeah, big stress there. Mm-mm.
I'm just like, get out of there. Do this in a
Yeah.
public forum. Do this.
Right, right. Yes. Yeah.
You don't need to like corner this person in like the freezer.
No. No,
The
yes,
walk-in freezer is not a
no.
place for this conversation.
Don't be
She
in a
doesn't
knife
actually do anything in
room.
the walk-in freezer. That was just
No.
like the first example I thought of of like places I would not confront a murderer.
Oh, no. But she is always going into like their offices,
Yes.
like their private offices and like spilling all the beans. And you're like, stop, please stop. Protect yourself. Especially because she's on the run. She can't get traditional protection, you
Yeah.
know, because she cannot be on the radar at all. So,
Yeah.
yeah, not smart moves all the time, but she's great.
So what is yours?
So I finally watched Chapel which is on Epics, and it came out. I don't even know when it came out. A bajillion years ago. I finally watched it, and I love it. I know that people say that it's slow, that it could have been less episodes, which yeah, sure, but like I love the world. I love that time period. Adrian Brody is incredible. The whole cast is great. So and I have a thing with that. So when I was a kid, we had a copy of whatever Stephen King collection Jerusalem's Lot was in. And I thought that Jerusalem's Lot, the short story, was Salem's Lot, the book. And I was like really little. And these are like my mom's copies, right?
Hmm.
And my mom has this whole story about how she read Salem's Lot when she was pregnant with me. And so that's why I am the way I am, and blah, blah, blah. And so I have this like connection to Salem's Lot, the book. And I read that last year and really loved it. But when I was a little kid, I thought they were the same thing. So I started reading Jerusalem's Lot, the short story, and I was like, this is like old timey
Yeah.
epistolary. Like, I am bored. I'm also 10 and I am bored with this. So I just like discarded it. And then, and I've never read it. I've never actually read the short story. But then I heard about Chapelwaite, and I at first didn't realize that it was an adaptation of Jerusalem's Lot. And I was like, oh, I love Adrian Brody. I love vampires. Like, great. I'm going to check this out. We're totally going to get into this. And then as I'm like watching it, I'm like, this actually "It's Jerusalem's Lot," and I, like, got all excited and just got, like, really into it. So, I have, like, this additional connection, and I just feel like these properties are weirdly special to me.
Oh.
So, I really enjoyed it. I think it's a really excellent period piece, period horror piece. And apparently it's been renewed for a second season, which I actually am a little surprised because I didn't think that it got a whole lot of attention, but I hope that that actually happens and I will definitely be there for season 2.
Hmm. I think you told me about the show. I think I was trying to think like, where did I
Yeah,
hear about the show from? It was you.
probably. Yeah. Yeah.
But it sounds really interesting. Wasn't there another big horror show on Epix? Anyway, like I don't know.
Yeah.
Someone out there knows exactly what I'm talking about, and they're like,
They're
"It's this,
screaming.
it's this."
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show again.
Yes,
To
thank you for having me. I always have fun coming on it. It's always exciting to read in a theme and hunt for these
it
books. Like,
is, yeah,
I'm a librarian. I really enjoy hunting for certain titles, finding recommendations for people. So this is just a really fun way to exercise that.
yeah. This takes like months of preparation. Like
It
we
does.
talked about this like in November.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah. But it's always a fun journey.
I think so too. I'm glad you do too, because it's always like homework. I'm always like, "Oh, do you want to come on the show? Here's all this homework. Thank you." Right. Well, game over. No. I had to get it in one last time.
It's really good. I hope we won.
We'll get our $10,000 wired to our account
Yes.
anytime now.
Thank God. I really need it because I
You
need to
think you're in your
amputate a
attic, but
leg.
actually, boom, it's an escape room. Hope you're ready.
No! I can't get out. And all the puzzles are word puzzles, so I'm done.
Yeah, well, like every like 5 minutes you take, like one of your floorboards is just gonna disappear.
Oh, you know what? They're doing that without the escape room element, so
It's been an escape room all along. Books in the Freezer is a bi-weekly podcast. We post episodes every other Tuesday. You can find us on Twitter at Books Freezer Pod, on Instagram at Books in the Freezer, on TikTok at Books in the Freezer, or you can send us an email at booksinthefreezer@gmail.com. And if you would like to support the show, there are a few ways to do that. One of them is to become a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/booksinthefreezer. There is a $1, $3, and a $5 level, and you do have the option to do like a one-time annual payment that I believe does give you like a 10% discount overall. But there are different things offered at every level, going from early episode releases for all levels of Patreon supporters to group chats and movie nights and bonus episodes and getting to participate in episodes. So check that out if that sounds interesting to you. And another way to support the show is to leave a review on a site like Apple Podcasts. There is a new review. I was going to try to read the username, but it is just consonants, no vowels, which is making it a little difficult. But a 5-star review that says, "A cozy horror book podcast. Is it weird to call a podcast about horror books cozy? Maybe it's Stephanie's soothing voice. Thank you. Or the ambient theme music. But something about this show makes me feel warm and fuzzy. I just started listening and I love all the guests and the books they talk about, which of course I've all added to my ever-growing TBR pile. Keep up the amazing work." Thank you so much for those nice words. If you would like your 5-star review read on the podcast, just leave a small review on Apple Podcasts and I will read it at the end of the episode. And if you've already done that, another great way to show your support for the podcast is to talk about it. Share the show on social media, tell a friend about it, participate in the Books in the Freezer reading challenge. Anything like that, word of mouth is huge for indie podcasts like this one. So thank you so much to all of you who take time to do that. Also, a quick word on sponsor for the show, Fangoria. Voting is now open for the Chainsaw Awards, which are voted on by fans in different categories in horror for the movies that came out last year. So in the show notes, I will leave a link for voting for the Chainsaw Awards. So definitely be sure to do that if you were a horror fan, if you watched movies that came out last year. We want to hear from you. I'm Stephanie. You can find me on Twitter at lady underscore Ganya. That's LADY underscore GAGNON. Or on Instagram at That's What She Read. And that is that's with two A's. I will say on Instagram, I post almost exclusively to stories, and they are mostly non horror things. Like, why did I decide that I wanted to watch all the Disney Channel original movies and rank them in a letterbox list? I don't know, but you can follow along on that journey on Instagram or Letterboxd. I'll see if I can remember to leave both links in the show notes for that. But as always, thank you so much for listening, and see you next time on Books in the Freezer.